Hello, hello. Welcome to English Extras. My name is Jean. If you're here, it's because you don't want to sound like a textbook. You're in the right place. This podcast is to help intermediate and advanced learners find alternatives to textbook English so you can express yourself authentically. Before we begin, if you want the transcript for this episode, you can follow the link in the description. Reading and listening at the same time is a great way to improve your English, and I also include definitions of words and phrases I use in the episode, as well as example sentences at the end of each transcript. Ready? Let's begin. Without a doubt, one of the most common concerns I hear from new students is, I don't know how to make small talk in English. Mostly, I hear this from students who are professionals, who work in an office environment and so have to interact with people casually while in a professional space. The ability to make small talk was part of how I was raised. I was born and raised in the South, which includes about 8 to 10 states, depending on how you're counting, that all share a similar culture. Part of Southern culture is being able to chat casually with strangers or people you don't know very well. So I was taught this at a young age. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. How to chat with people you don't know very well, also called acquaintances, or people you don't know at all, also called strangers. First of all, you should know there is no official list of small talk vocabulary or small talk grammar. Small talk is simply the category of speaking that usually happens between strangers or acquaintances. Small talk does not contain very important information or controversial topics. Small talk is about either passing time with a stranger so you don't suffer in silence, or starting or deepening existing relationships with someone you don't know very well. Second of all, there are 3 points I want you to keep in mind. 1, making small talk gets easier with time and practice. It will not always be perfect. It will sometimes feel very awkward. And sometimes it will be amazing. 2, don't take it too seriously because no one is going to remember what you say anyway. And 3, the largest part of small talk is body language. Now let's talk about how to start. Always assume that the other person, if you know them or not, is more uncomfortable than you are. They are probably thinking, oh my gosh, what do I say? Do I look okay? Am I sitting on paint? What do I do? So your job is simply to help the other person feel more relaxed by talking about nothing. You can start making small talk by simply saying, "How are you?" This is a very polite thing to do. The other person will say something like, "Fine, how are you?" You can answer by saying, "Good, thanks." And then you can continue the conversation in a variety of ways. But in this episode, we're going to talk about 3 ways: opinion, compliment, or general information. You can give your opinion about something around you. This cafe has really great coffee. Or you can ask their opinion about something. What do you think about the coffee here? If you don't see anything around you to talk about the weather. People love to talk about the weather. You can give the person a compliment. That's a really nice jacket. It's even better if you follow the compliment with a question about it. That's a really nice jacket. Where did you get it? Or, I like your shirt. Is Metallica your favorite band? Giving a compliment is a great way to make small talk because people like to be complimented. It makes the other person feel good. Tangential to this is asking someone about something you are both interested in. This, of course, doesn't really work for talking to strangers since you won't know what their interests are. But for coworkers, you might know a little bit about them. If you both like football, perfect. Ask about the football game. If you both like the same comedian, ask if they saw the latest TikTok. You can also ask for general information, like what time it is or where something is. Do you have the time? Or is this elevator going up? This type of question is best for strangers because there's only one way to answer these questions. So those are some ways to start a conversation, but how do you maintain a conversation? When I meet a new student, my goal is to ask a lot of questions so my student talks as much as possible. With small talk, the goal isn't to only ask questions. There should be a trade between conversation partners. You should ask questions, they should ask questions, back and forth. When you ask a question, make sure it's an open-ended question. An open-ended question is a question that cannot be answered with just a yes or no. Open-ended questions usually start with how or what. For example, how did you like the presentation earlier? Or what did you think about the football game last night? Here's a note about asking questions that start with why. I once read a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Chris Voss has had a very long career in negotiation. He's an expert at talking to people and getting what he wants from them. He writes, regardless of what language the word why is translated into, it's accusatory. This is not true 100% of the time, of course, but with strangers and acquaintances, it's best to avoid why questions in the beginning. At best, it's direct. At worst, it's judgmental. Sometimes you can soften it by saying, how come, instead. But it still depends. In general, I would recommend sticking with how or what questions. Another way to continue a conversation is to ask about generally safe topics, such as people you both know, a place you both know, the other person's job, their family, their pets, or their general interests. Watch their body language. If they become uncomfortable with a particular topic, move on to a different one. While you're continuing the conversation with someone, make sure you're showing interest in what the other person is saying. You can do this by either nodding or by making sounds such as or uh-huh. There's also small phrases we use to show we're listening, such as right, yeah, really, oh, and interesting. So we talked about how to start small talk, how to maintain small talk, and now let's discuss how to end small talk. You can do this a few different ways. For example, sorry to cut our conversation short, but I do have to go. Or, it was nice talking to you. I'll see you around. Or, if it's a stranger that you'll never see again, you can say, well, I'm going to go. It was nice talking to you. Have a good one. These are all good ways to end a conversation with someone. Overall, the details of the conversation will depend a lot on the context. It depends on who you're talking to and where you're talking to them. Small talk with a coworker you don't know very well is going to be different than small talk with an old lady at the supermarket. But if you're nervous, take a deep breath and remember, it isn't that serious. Matthew Dix is an insanely decorated storyteller with dozens of awards. His style of storytelling involves standing in front of hundreds of people and talking about his life. Who wouldn't be nervous? But he doesn't think being nervous is a bad thing. In his book, Storyworthy, he writes, nervousness can be your friend. Too much of it is never good, but not being nervous at all isn't good either. Keep your mind open to having a good time. It might be difficult in the beginning, but the beginning is usually the hardest part. And once you're beyond that, the rest is smooth sailing. Remember, the goal is to connect with the other person, and the only way to do that is to talk to them. If you try some of these tips, let me know in the comments. And as always, if you'd like the transcript to this episode, which also has further resources about small talk, check out the link in the description. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.